Hi everyone, welcome back to DFTW, a channel to view the world from a unique perspective. Today, we talk about Bruce Leung, the anti-Japanese screen hero, who died on January 14, 2026, the same day Nie Weiping passed away. Many Western audiences know Bruce Lee better than Bruce Leung, but in China, the latter may be more influential. The first time Bruce Leung, known better in China by his Chinese name, Liang Xiaolong, appeared in a Chinese household as a hero, he was not merely acting. He was stepping into a role already written by history, one in which a man could be a symbol of national pride, a vessel for collective anger, and a reminder that the past still matters. For generations of Chinese audiences, Bruce Leung's image is inseparable from a specific kind of cinema, the anti-Japanese martial arts film. These were not just action movies. They were political messages disguised as entertainment, patriotic hymns disguised as fight scenes, and historical lessons disguised as melodrama. They were films in which the hero's fists did not merely defeat an enemy, they defended a national identity. Bruce Leung became famous for these roles. His martial arts were real, his posture was rigid with resolve, and his characters often embodied a sense of righteous anger that could not be easily contained. But the deeper story is not just about Bruce Leung's career. It is about how China's national narrative has been shaped by history, by politics, and by film. And it is about a strange contradiction. Why does China encourage anti-Japanese literature and movies when, for most of the past decades, the Chinese government maintained relatively stable relations with Japan? To understand that, we need to step back and look at the broader story of China-Japan relations, and how cultural memory and political strategy have interacted over time. Bruce Leung's life and career were built on a foundation of real martial arts, real hardship, and real political meaning. He was born in a time when Hong Kong was a place of both opportunity and struggle, where the film industry was rising. Still, the social environment was fraught with colonial rule, identity crisis, and a sense of historical loss. His rise to fame was not merely personal, it was collective. When he appeared in the role of Chen, he became a living symbol of a Chinese spirit that refused to bow. In those films, the enemy was not only an individual villain, but also a representation of national humiliation. The Japanese invaders were not portrayed as distant foreigners. They were depicted as an embodiment of historical trauma, an external force that had once crushed China's pride. Bruce Leung's most iconic roles were built on this narrative. He played characters who fought not just for personal revenge, but for the restoration of dignity. In these films, every punch was a historical correction, every victory a symbolic triumph over the past. To audiences, he was more than a martial arts star. He was a hero who made the wounds of history visible and therefore conquerable. Anti-Japanese films are not a new phenomenon in China. They became especially popular in the 1970s and 1980s, a period when the memory of the Second Sino-Japanese War was still fresh in the minds of many, and when China was redefining its identity after decades of internal turmoil. A set of familiar elements defines the genre. A righteous Chinese hero who embodies moral purity and national dignity, like Zhen and his guru, Hu Yuanjia. Japanese villains who represent aggression, cruelty, and imperialism. A plot centered around resistance, sacrifice, and eventual victory. Strong emotional cues that aim to revive collective memory and encourage patriotic sentiment. These films served a purpose beyond entertainment. They were cultural tools, designed to shape how the public understood history and national identity. But why would a government that maintained diplomatic ties with Japan still encourage such films? The answer lies in nationalism itself. Nationalism is not a fixed emotion, it is a political resource. Governments can use it to unite people, to justify policies, and to manage domestic sentiment. Anti-Japanese films do not necessarily contradict diplomatic relations. They can coexist with them because they serve a different purpose, reinforcing a national identity rooted in historical suffering and resilience. China and Japan share a long and complicated history. The relationship has been shaped by cultural exchange, conflict, modernization, imperialism, war, and economic interdependence. The Second Sino-Japanese War is the central event in the modern memory of China. It was not simply a war, it was a national catastrophe that caused immense suffering, loss, and humiliation. Millions of Chinese died, and the war left deep psychological scars. This trauma became a foundational element of China's national narrative. It was used to explain the need for national unity, the dangers of weakness, and the importance of strength. The war was not simply history, it was a lesson in national survival. After the war, China's political landscape changed dramatically. The People's Republic of China was established in 1949, and China's foreign policy became driven by the logic of survival and development. During the Cold War, China's priorities were shaped by ideological rivalry, internal stability, and modernization. In the 1970s and 1980s, China began to open up economically. Japan was a crucial partner. Japan offered investment, technology, and a model for rapid industrialization. Despite the historical trauma, pragmatic considerations took precedence. Thus, China and Japan developed a relationship that was economically beneficial and diplomatically stable, even while the memory of war remained alive in public consciousness. That created a paradox: the government pursued stable ties, while popular culture continued to emphasize historical resentment. The key to understanding this paradox is recognizing that the government's approach to national memory is not inconsistent, it is strategic. Every nation needs a story. China's story in the modern era is one of humiliation and revival. The war with Japan is a crucial chapter in that story. Without it, the narrative of the century of humiliation loses much of its emotional power. Anti-Japanese films keep that narrative alive. They remind people of a time when China was weak and humiliated, and they celebrate the idea of national revival. The government benefits from this because it strengthens legitimacy. If people feel that their nation has risen from historical suffering, they are more likely to support the government that claims to have led that rise. That is also why in the 1970s and 1980s, the Chinese government did not emphasize the importance of the nationalist government in defending the country against Japanese invaders. A narrative is essential to maintain a government's legitimacy. The government encourages patriotism, but it wants it in a controlled form. Anti-Japanese films provide an outlet for anger and national pride without encouraging direct political dissent. Interestingly, Bruce Leung started his film career in Hong Kong, a British colony at the time, not on the Chinese mainland, so his anti-Japanese films did not directly affect China-Japan relations. However, as Hong Kong was set to return to China, we cannot rule out the possibility that the Chinese government would influence the Hong Kong film industry to make such films. Hong Kong was also a victim of Japanese occupation in the 1940s, and of course, such anti-Japanese films have native appeal as well. Nationalism and patriotism can be powerful forces for unity, but they can also be unpredictable. By shaping how nationalism and patriotism are expressed, the government can direct public sentiment toward approved narratives. China's education system has long emphasized the war with Japan as a central lesson in modern history. The memory of the war is treated as a moral lesson: never allow national humiliation again. Films are a more emotionally engaging way to teach this lesson than textbooks. They create images that stick in the mind. A young viewer might not remember a historical date, but they will remember a heroic fight scene, a cruel villain, or a patriotic speech. In this way, anti-Japanese films are a form of mass education, reinforcing historical memory through emotion. National unity is essential for China's stability. Anti-Japanese films can foster a sense of unity by creating a common enemy and a shared story of victimhood and resistance. This unity is especially useful in times of economic or social stress. When internal problems arise, a government can use external historical enemies to divert attention and strengthen cohesion. On the surface, it seems contradictory: why maintain friendly relations with Japan while promoting anti-Japanese sentiment? But the contradiction is only surface level. In reality, diplomacy and cultural memory serve different purposes. Diplomatic relations are based on mutual interests. Japan is a major economic power, a major investor, and a key partner in regional stability if its militarism were not revived. China cannot afford to sacrifice these interests for emotional reasons. Diplomacy requires compromise and long-term strategy. It is not based on emotion but on calculation. Culture is where emotion lives. People need stories. They need heroes. They need villains. Anti-Japanese films provide emotional satisfaction and a sense of identity that diplomacy cannot. The government can pursue diplomatic relations with Japan while still supporting cultural products that emphasize historical grievances. These two policies do not necessarily conflict because they operate in different realms. In fact, the government can use cultural resentment to maintain legitimacy while pursuing pragmatic diplomacy. It's a form of balance, economic and diplomatic cooperation in the present, and historical resistance in the cultural imagination. Bruce Leung's films were not merely entertainment. They were part of a broader cultural system that shaped national identity. His characters often represent the ideal Chinese hero, strong, righteous, and unyielding. They do not compromise. They do not negotiate. They fight. It is precisely the kind of hero that fits the national narrative. The hero is not only physically strong, he is morally strong. He stands for national dignity. Bruce Leung's popularity in the anti-Japanese genre demonstrates the power of this narrative. His films allowed audiences to experience a symbolic victory over historical humiliation. Even if the real world was complex and diplomatic, the film world offered a clear moral resolution. In recent years, China-Japan relations have experienced more tension. There are several reasons for this. As China rises, Japan's strategic role changes. Japan aligns with the United States and is part of regional alliances that may conflict with China's interests. The rivalry is not only economic but also strategic. That increases the potential for political tension. The Jiaoyu or Senkaku Islands dispute remains unresolved. Territorial issues are emotionally charged and can easily trigger nationalist sentiment. Both countries have domestic political pressures that can encourage a tougher stance. Politicians often use nationalism to strengthen their position. Even when diplomatic relations are stable, historical memory remains. It does not disappear just because governments sign agreements. That is why anti-Japanese films continue to resonate. They tap into a memory that is still alive. The persistence of anti-Japanese films and literature reveals a deeper truth: history is never truly past. In China, the war with Japan is not just history, it is a foundational narrative that defines modern national identity. The war is a moral lesson about weakness, humiliation, and revival. It is a reminder of what happened when the nation was divided and weak. Even if the government maintains stable relations with Japan, the public's emotional memory remains. And the government understands that. That is why it allows and sometimes encourages anti-Japanese cultural products. They help maintain a narrative that supports national unity and political legitimacy. When Bruce Leung died in 2026, the reaction was not only about a star's passing. It was about the end of an era. He represented a generation of martial artists and actors who embodied a rare kind of authenticity today. His style was not cinematic illusion. It was real, physical, and unpolished. His characters were not glamorous. They were tough, angry, and determined. He was a hero of memory. He did not just fight on screen. He fought against a history of humiliation. He embodied the idea that national dignity could be restored through strength, courage, and resilience. In that sense, Bruce Leung's career was not only about martial arts or film. It was about how a nation remembers itself. In China, he is highly respected not only because of his achievements, but also because he clearly told the world that he is Chinese, which led to his disappearing from the screen for nearly 20 years. He is not as shiny as Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee, but he deserves more respect from Chinese audiences for his unwavering stance. He is not only a screen hero, but also a real-life hero, defending his country and national identity. His success resulted from the century of humiliation, when Japan played the most devastating role. China's relationship with Japan is one of the most complex in modern history. It is a relationship defined by both cooperation and historical conflict, by economic interdependence and emotional resentment. Anti-Japanese films and literature exist not because China hates Japan, but because the memory of war is central to China's modern identity. The government can maintain diplomatic relations while still encouraging cultural products that keep historical memory alive. These cultural products are not necessarily meant to harm diplomacy. They are meant to strengthen national unity, reinforce a narrative of historical suffering and revival, and provide a controlled outlet for emotion. Bruce Leung's career is a perfect example of this paradox. He became famous by embodying the righteous anger of history, and his films helped shape how a generation understood the past. His roles were not simply acting, they were a form of national storytelling. And that is why his legacy matters. He was not just a martial arts star. He was a symbol of how China remembers itself, and how it uses culture to keep that memory alive. Bruce Leung died, but he will be remembered, and his screen life will not end. Rest in peace, Bruce. We respect and remember you for good.